in the Library by Kelly Gebhardt. So there are lots of reasons for having a collection policy within a school library. The number one reason to me is to facilitate quality selection. So you want to have the policy and procedure in place on making sure your collection is a quality selection, not quantity. You want the most books. Okay, you're looking for books that meet the needs of your students, your school community, those books on diversity that match, the kids in your school, books that are in great condition, that aren't falling apart, aren't pages ripped out or, missing, the second in a series. You want them up to date. You want, those new releases. You want books that all learners can access, whether it's Braille or audio or whatever it is that your kids need. You have those, and that all your nonfiction is filled. You have all topics covered. So that to me is facilitating that quality selection. The second reason for having a collection policy is to guide the evaluation of the collection. So you want those written procedures on how the collection is evaluated, how we decide what and when to weed or what areas need attention when purchasing, and even covers why certain titles were purchased in the first place. So that way, if a challenge is ever received, there's a policy in place that can kind of defend why you got it, what was the point of it, and why you're going to keep it. So the third reason is to protect intellectual freedom. So in one of the articles I read, it talked about how librarians need to be respecting parents' right to decide what their individual child can and can't read, but that those parents cannot make the decision for all the patrons. Everyone has the right to read, and so that's the job of the librarian, is to protect that. Um, so an article that I read was called "They're So Stinking Popular, How Could You Say No? Graphic Novel Collection Development and School Librarian Self-Censorship" by Moeller and Deschanel. So the article interviewed, it was a research article, and it interviewed 20 school librarians about their collection practices and when it comes to graphic novels specifically. And it found that a majority were engaging in self-censorship because, their lack of knowledge on the content, because a lot of the librarians are just not interested in graphic novels. This was back in 2020, and I feel like things have really progressed since then. But other things that they were self-censoring was the curse words and the graphic images. Sometimes the themes can be a little mature for elementary and middle schoolers in graphic novels. And they just wanted to avoid being challenged. They just didn't want to deal with it. So how did they censor? They put graphic novels, all of the graphic novels, in restricted areas or behind the desk where kids needed parent permission slips to check those out. Or they just straight up removed them from their collection, either by putting them in the back office or just sending them to the upper grade schools to let them have, because they didn't feel it was a good fit. So some of the biggest takeaways when I was reading this article, some of the positive things were that graphic novels successfully support the learning of ESL learners and the reading interests of struggling readers. Uh, 19 out of 20 librarians said that they were the most highly circulated material in the collection. So kids are wanting these over everything, and it's just unfortunate that some of these books are getting censored because of lack of knowledge. So some of the negative things that I found was that looking at scary images can have a bigger effect than reading about them, which I never thought, but it rings true. There is a lot of direct censorship to cover indecent pictures, marking through them, coloring in them, making sure that no naked bodies are shown, and that there's not enough professional review sources to purchase new materials or defend their selection choices. So they're not getting the same professional reviews that they get for their chapter books and their novels. They don't have that for graphic novels, so they're not knowing what to purchase, so they're not purchasing them. In the article "Children's Collection Development: Good Books or Books Kids Like" by Todd Kyle, he just talked about how children are attracted to low quality books because they use familiar characters they've seen on TV or movies. So unlike the author of this article, I never want to dissuade a reader from the book they want, you know, and they utilize what it takes to get books into kids' hands and use story time to introduce those quality reads. So my future library collection will reflect student interest and not just what I want them to be interested in. Thank you.